Now this is next one. This is actually a video of the 4 megapixel N44 series. So this is your standard camera. Obviously, it's switched to black and white because it can no longer render good images in color. And you could see there where it was raining, and the rain was hitting the bubble or the lens of the camera, and obviously showing some reflection and creating a little bit of a blurry visibility. Now, when you look at this 4 megapixel night color camera, now this is the exact same application, and it is raining in this application, but now the image is in full color, but you can't see the rain hitting up against the lens. So it's going to have much better visibility with this camera. So if that is a concern with weather conditions hindering the ability to view certain applications, especially at nighttime, this would be an ideal camera. So when you compare the 2 megapixel, as I mentioned, we introduced probably around 6 months ago, that has done very, very well in the market. Just as a reminder, this is the image that you were looking at in the same scene. So now with the 4 megapixel, we're showing that exact same scene again, but the color is even better than what we displayed with the 2 megapixel. So it was pretty impressive when we released the 2 megapixel that you could see that much color in, you know, a very dark application, but now the image looks like it was shot during the daytime. So the difference between the pricing there, they're both part of the Pro series, and the 2 and the 4 both have a 3.6 millimeter lens. We're not able to introduce a 2.8 millimeter at this time just because the sensor is larger and there isn't enough room on the board. But the difference here is, you know, around $60. So if you need even better color rendition in dark settings, you would want to upgrade to the 4 megapixel. Now these cameras are coming into the portfolio in the middle of July, so just a few more weeks, and we will have these in stock. So again, these cameras are more ideal, as a reminder, that they're good for applications that are dark but also have a little bit of backlighting. So even like a casino application, because a lot of casinos are fairly dark, these cameras would definitely render much clearer, more color vibrant images. Or perhaps on the side of a building that does have some street lights in the backdrop. So additional features that the cameras do offer, as a reminder, these are the EPOE, so low wattage, so of a more eco-friendly environment. Invisible surveillance, so very good for covert applications. True wide dynamic range, they are on-BIF conformant. Again, the onboard IVS analytics and SD card slot. You can also do the image flip so that you can rotate it for applications such as a corridor, so you're not capturing the size of a wall or eating up, you know, bandwidth and storage on capturing areas that are not advantageous. And they're also indoor-outdoor rated. So here's just an example of the true wide dynamic range. As I mentioned, it is 120 dB, and if you don't enable it, you can see the blooming effects and the kind of the washed out areas. However, on the right-hand side, once you enable wide dynamic range, you can see that you're now able to see much more details in those areas that were previously blooming. Okay, so let's get to the analytics part of these cameras. So as a reminder, we have 3 levels of analytics in our portfolio. We have the premium IVS, and those analytics including motion, scene change, abandoned or missing object, tripwire, and intrusion. Those are in 99% of our cameras. So whether it's a Light, a Pro, or an Ultra series, you're going to get the premium IVS on the majority of our cameras. Now, advanced IVS is typically found on the Pro and our Ultra series cameras, and those features include face detection, where it's just detecting that a face is present in a scene. We also have people counting, which allows you to do one region where you can draw one line or one area. Heat map and auto tracking is obviously in our PTZ cameras. Analytics Plus now, this is a new level to our portfolio where we include facial recognition. Currently, face recognition is only available on one of our cameras, which is our box camera. People counting, now this one will be coming with a firmware upgrade in July, and with that you're going to be able to do 4 regions of tripwire and intrusion. So that's going to be available on the 45E and the new 45D, which are the 2 products that we're launching today. Face attributes, so that allows you to capture the face, but then also it analyzes the person's face to indicate whether what the person's gender is or their age range, and also whether the person has glasses or mustache. And then finally, the last one within our Analytics Plus category is perimeter protection, which allows you to decipher whether you want to trigger an alarm for either people or vehicles. So a good way to analyze, the Analytics Plus is that the Analytics Plus features are more of a 2-layer where it does one thing and then based on that it does something else. So that's what really is the difference between Analytics Plus and the standard Analytics. So here's just an example of the face attributes. So on the right-hand side, you can see that the camera identified the face, and then it's just making a guess as to, what type of expression the individual has, their age range, and their gender. Now, this is going to be available on the N45D series, which is the Starlight Plus, which I'll be talking about in just a few minutes. It's available on the varifocal right now, and the fixed lens camera will have that available with the firmware upgrade that's coming in July. The perimeter protection is available on all of the N45D and E series. And then, as I mentioned, the face recognition is just available on that one box camera that we have right now. And then the people counting with the 4 regions that's available with the firmware upgrade will be available for the N45D and E series. So with the Analytics Plus, the one thing or the one feature, perimeter protection, that's available is going to allow you to search by either human or vehicle. So that's pretty great because you're going to be able to save a lot of time, especially for post events that you're looking for. If you know that you're looking specifically for a vehicle, you can simply do a search just depending on what it is that you're looking for. So that's going to obviously add a lot more efficiency to your operators. So the other thing that's great about the perimeter protection analytic is that it's going to reduce your false alarms. So it's going to obviously make your system and your operators much more effective, because now you're not going to be getting alarms for, simple tree movement or animals that are crossing, bright light sensitivity, or even shadows. And plus, you're going to be able to identify either people or vehicles depending on what you want the alarm for. Whereas with the premium IVS features that are available in a lot of our cameras right now, a lot of times you will get a false alarm depending on, you know, the type of movement that's being triggered in the scene. So some use cases with the perimeter protection analytic is that you could configure a rule obviously around perimeters such as shrubs or borders. You could also configure a tripwire rule around museum displays or types of wildlife or zoo areas. You could also configure a rule along swamps or rivers, also to detect if a human, you know, ends up falling into a body of water. Some other areas that you could use the perimeter protection is in a street application, maybe to monitor jaywalking. Also in areas where it's very dark, so there's poor lighting conditions, so you can configure a rule to alert you if a person is crossing the street. You could also use it to monitor an area that has a large obstacle, so you're losing your line of sight, and so that you would want to trigger an alarm so that you can watch that the person or vehicle comes out on the other side wherever there's an obstacle blocking. Also to configure for humans or entering a non-pedestrian area that's kind of a danger zone where you don't want humans or anybody walking through, such as a garage entrance. So these are all some additional use cases that the perimeter protection can be used. So as I mentioned, you know, the ability to have more accurate analytics. So in this example, you know, the trees are swaying back and forth, and typically, you know, you would get a false alarm there. So it creates higher efficiency. In this particular case, they didn't want a vehicle crossing this line, so once it goes past the line, now it's triggering an alert. And in this case, no pedestrians are allowed, so once that person crosses that line, an alert is sent, indicating that, you know, there's somebody walking through that area. So again, reducing the false alarms is definitely going to create a more efficient operation. So setting up the cameras, you can easily do them at about, you know, 9.8 feet. It really just depends on the type of lens that you're using. So as I mentioned, the perimeter protection will be available in our 3.6 millimeter for the night color technology. So your distance that you're going to be able to get is about 26 feet. This is also, perimeter protection is also available in the varifocal lens for the D series, which I'll be talking about in a moment. So you could go up to about 85 feet with that camera. You can utilize pretty much any NVR that's in our portfolio with the perimeter protection Analytics Plus feature. So now I'd just like to walk you through the perimeter protection camera setup so that you understand a little bit more about how to do that from the camera. So you would just want to go into the Smart Plan, and you would just want to click on the perimeter protection icon that's highlighted there, number 3. And just keep in mind that whether you're doing the face attribute, the heat map, perimeter protection, or people counting, you can only do one of these at a time. So you have to decide which one it is that you want to have alerts sent for. And once you decide that, then the smart codec actually cannot be used when using any of these Smart Plan options. So that's something to keep in mind. After you decide which one you're going to use, you just hit save. So now configuring it for, let's say, tripwire or intrusion, you would just go into the IVS menu, and number 2, you would click on that green plus sign, And here you can determine whether you want to do tripwire or intrusion. And then you can draw your line. So as I mentioned, with this camera, you can just do one area, and then after you draw your line, you would just want to indicate whether you want to filter for the human and or motor vehicle, or if you don't want to trigger either one of them, it's just going to send you an alert for just about any moving object. The snapshot is going to allow you to receive an image for video triggers that are alerted to you, and then you just hit the save. So for the perimeter protection, you can do up to 10 rules. Now from the NVR side of it, this is what it looks like in the N52 or the N54. As I mentioned, you can use pretty much any NVR that's in our portfolio, but this one is for the N52 or N54. And then once you go into the IBS section, after you choose your smart plan, you can just go in and determine whether you want to do intrusion or tripwire, draw it, and then apply that. And another benefit is, like I mentioned previously, is that you can do a retrieval. You can search your events either by human or vehicle, and again, that's going to greatly reduce your video search time and provide more efficiency, especially doing post-events. So overall, as I mentioned, your Analytics Plus perimeter protection is going to provide more accuracy. So we did a comparison, and we're saying up to about 96 to 97% when it comes to people and vehicles as compared to our traditional analytics. So much less false negatives. So when we compare the 4 megapixel with the 2 megapixel in price, as I mentioned, you're looking at about a $60 difference, and these cameras are coming in the middle of July. Okay, so that is the conclusion of the night color section. So now let's talk about the new Starlight Plus cameras, which is classified as our N45D series. These are still 4 megapixel cameras, and these have the Starlight Plus technology. So as a reminder, Starlight Plus is going to give you the lowest or the best low light performance compared to either our basic or our enhanced. Now the difference is that this camera does have an IR cut filter, and these cameras do have IR illumination built in, whereas our night color does not. And it's going to allow your performance to go down to 0.004 lux or lower. So this camera is going to eventually turn into black and white, obviously, when it gets down to that lux level where it's no longer able to render good pictures in dark applications. So here's a sample. The left side is shot with the 45D series, and this one was in the evening, and obviously it is now turned over to black and white. And on the right-hand side, that one was at dusk, so there's still some lighting there, so it's going to still be in full color. And this camera does go down to 0.0024 lux with an f-stop of 1.8. So some additional features that are in this camera series. So you have, first of all, you have a choice between a dome that's a fixed lens, 2.8 millimeter, or the dome that's a varifocal or a bullet varifocal. And these have the same size sensor as the night color cameras of 1 1/8, true wide dynamic range, integrated IR, onboard storage, the dual Kodak. You have premium IBS features with heat mapping, but now you're getting the Analytics Plus. So in this camera series, you're going to get those face attributes, whereas the 4 megapixel night color, you don't get the face attributes, but you do get the perimeter detection. So this one is different because you get the face attributes, but you also get the perimeter protection. So here's our 44C. This is our standard camera, which I already showed you. But now we're looking at the 45D with Starlight Plus technology. So you're going to get about 2 times the brightness of the N44. And the difference in price there is about $119 or so. And the reason that you're going to get a little bit better clarity in the nighttime because of that Starlight Plus is because the size of the sensor is just slightly larger than the 1/3 that comes with the N44C. So again, they both have their place in our portfolio, just depending on what type of an application you need the camera for. And then finally, there's another comparison shot of the 4-megapixel night color. Okay, so this is just a quick overview of a little bit more of the specs when you're looking at the night color compared to the Starlight Plus and in terms of the pricing. So night color, again, you know, you have the 3.6mm lens, no IR cut filter. You do have to have that about 1 lux of illumination. You're getting the perimeter protection. You're also getting people counting, and that's at $359.99. With the Starlight Plus technology, you can choose between either the varifocal or a fixed lens, so $559.99 or $319.99. Now, as I mentioned before, with the box camera is the only other camera that's in our portfolio right now with the Starlight Plus technology, and that one goes down to 0.0005 lux, whereas these 2 new Starlight Plus cameras go down to 0.0024. Now, if you notice down there, the MSRP is pretty different. You're still going to get a little bit better low light illumination with the 4K Starlight Plus box camera, but I did just want to show you that one in comparison to these 2 new 4-megapixel Starlight Plus cameras. So I'd like to now just show you the menus for the face attributes if you do plan on using those. So again, as I mentioned before, you can only choose one from the Smart Plan options at a time, and the Smart Codec is not going to be able to use when you're using one of these Smart Plan options. So if you choose the face attribute, just going to go in and click that, hit save, and then that's going to allow you to do those facial attributes. So once you go into the face detection, you would just hit the enable up here at number 2, and then you can determine what type of a period, if you want to do it during certain times of the day, such as during business hours or particular days of the week. You would want to go in and hit that there, and then obviously do any type of detection of areas and draw your lines here and hit save. In the NVR, you would just go down to the preview mode and then determine here what you want to do if you're going to be doing for face attributes. So you can see here the person's face comes up, and then it's going to indicate over here that it's a middle-aged person, the gender is a male, they're not wearing glasses, and their expression is confused. And then here's just additional screenshot, again with the N52 or N54 with face detection. You're going to decide which channel it is and obviously enable it and hit apply. So in this particular case, when the camera took a shot of this individual, they came up as a stranger in the database, because you can add people into your database, and then it's going to trigger whether they're recognized or not. And in this particular case, it's coming up as a stranger because he was not entered. Okay, so let's talk about the people counting feature that both series of these cameras, the Starlight Plus and the Night Color cameras, offer. So if you do want to use the people counting feature, you would just go into Smart Plan again and hit the icon for people counting and hit Save. Now, you would go over, and after you do that, you would hit the people counting here on the side menu, and you have two tabs up here. You can run a report on this tab, and the first one is where you do all of your setup. So the first thing that you would want to do is come over here to your plus sign, and you can either do in area number, or you can hit people counting. Now, in area number is what you would want to use if you want to trigger an alarm for people that are idling in an area. So let's say perhaps you would want to utilize this camera on the outside of your building, because it is an IP67 rated, so indoor, outdoor, and you're having problems with loitering. So you could just set up your drawing area here, and if you want to set your threshold and say, you know what, if anybody is standing here for more than 3 minutes, I want an alert. And over here, this is where you would put the standing time. So it can go anywhere from 1 second all the way up to 1,800 seconds. And then you would just hit Save. So obviously the value proposition with this feature is going to eliminate the need to spend man hours checking for loiterers. So, you know, you can easily be working in the convenience store, maybe in the back room, the stock room, or whatever, and, you know, as soon as somebody's standing outside for whatever you decide the time amount, you're going to get an alert sent. So the people counting camera can also be used for public safety. So for example, maybe you have a crowded bar that there's, you know, a certain day or of the week, or there's a certain event going on where you could trigger an alert once your capacity is close to being met. That way you could send a bouncer out to start monitoring people going in and out of the application. And this can obviously be very helpful when you have a limited staff number. You don't have the funds to have somebody at the door on a regular basis. Now, in July, with this firmware upgrade, it's going to allow you to do 4 areas and 4 lines to be drawn here. So right now, with both of the 44E and the 44D series, you're just going to be able to draw 1 line, but in July, the firmware will allow you to do 4. So, and then over here, if you click the people counting button up here, you're going to be able to put your flow rate. So maybe you want an alert once, you know, 10 people enter the facility, or maybe you want to just know the stranded number and say, just tell me when there's 100 people that are actually in the facility, and then you would get an alert. The other type of use case that people counting could be used for is for retail applications. So let's say that you want to improve your customer service and open up additional checkouts when the lines become long. So again, you would just go over here. Once you're in the people counting function, go in here and indicate that you want this in area number, and let's say that you wanted to set up a regional statistic where, you know, there's a particular number of people in this area, and so then you want an alert sent. So this is going to allow you to improve customer service, but it's also going to allow you to get an alert, you know, if there's people that are standing at a cash register. So more efficiency overall. So if worker needs to be stocking shelves, they could obviously be roaming throughout the store, and then once a person is standing or idling in line or at a particular area in the store for a period of time, they could get an alert. So they're going to be able to be much more efficient. And then we also have the heat mapping. So again, you would just go into Smart Plan, hit heat map, hit save, and you can run a report from here. And this is just going to allow you to get the area's overview of where your traffic is at. So you could send somebody to help, you know, filter people in a different direction if one area is more concentrated than another. Or it's going to maybe allow you to look at hot spots that are in the store for a particular time of day. Okay, so let's take a look at what's included with these cameras. So this is the N45D series. So this is your bullet camera. You just turn it over. You can see where the SD card slot is, and that's also your reset button there. That comes with all the standard things and accessories, your quick guide, anchors and screws, mounting template, your torque wrench, also your weather adapter there. And we are now including a QR code so you can easily just access the manual right online. And then your pigtails here are clearly shown, your alarm in and out, as well as your power, your RJ45, and your audio in and out. So there's a lot of different mounting options here. So you can do a ceiling, a wall, or a pole mount. And then this LR1002, that's what you would use if you wanted to do that conversion to coax. Because again, remember, these are PoE, ePoE cameras. So if you need to convert a coax infrastructure to pure IP, this is what you would want to use, as well as this one here, the LR1002. And there's additional information on our website on how to change over to coax, change from coax to IP. So the dome camera, it includes just your power, your RJ45. This is where your SD card slot is going to be located, and very similar accessories. Mounting options, again, ceiling, wall, pole, in ceiling, wall mount, and this is the variety of ones that you would utilize. And then your 2.8mm dome camera from the Starlight Plus series, again, similar things that are included, your pigtails, and then your SD card slot location is right here. And obviously your mounting is the same with slightly different accessories. So overall, if you compare the 4-megapixel Starlight Plus camera with its closest predecessor being that of your 5-megapixel, this is just the additional benefits over the closest predecessor. So what you're really getting with this camera compared to the 5-megapixel with Starlight is you're getting that perimeter protection. You're getting clearer images in low light. You're getting the ability to do the face search or capture, and also people counting. So these cameras, the D series, these cameras are now all in stock. Now, as far as the other accessories, such as your NVRs, your PoE, ePoE switches, and those additional passive converters for switching to pure IP, right here is just an overview of all of those different part numbers.